Hello and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host Joe Rimmer, and joining me today is Theo Squires. How are we, Theo?
Yeah, not too bad.
And Ian Doyle is back from holiday. How are we, Ian?
Tired.
Tired?
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't had long enough time off?
I've been working the last 2 days. And I was working late last night as well.
You were.
Why? Nothing happened last night.
Yeah.
That's why we're not here. Also, I keep banging my head on the back of this, so I just thought I'd get that out the way first.
We are live on YouTube, and we're going early today. We usually go after Klopp's press conference, which is at 1:30 today, but we're going early because we thought let's address the elephant in the room and talk Xabi Alonso. I think everyone's quite keen to have a little natter about that. Before we start, we're live on YouTube. I'll be monitoring the comments, so if you got any thoughts, feelings, questions, pop them in the chat there.
Feelings.
What? Feelings.
How are you feeling today on Good
We
Friday?
should be able to talk about our feelings. Put them in the chat if you want to shout out. We'll give you a shout out. If you want to tell us what manager you want, pop it in the chat and we'll try and discuss it. If there's anyone that's not sort of in the runners and riders, bang it in the chat and we'll try and discuss it. Before we crack on, I just want to give a shout out to our new sponsors, NordVPN, who have come on board to sponsor us. Thank you very much. Nord, Theo, probably come in handy for you, who's been on the road this week interviewing Fabio Carvalho up in Hull. It's Nord protects you when you're on the road and you're filing copy from hotel bars. And,
I don't think I even got as far as the hotel bar. I think I just crashed in the room. But yeah, it was the very first thing that came up on my phone as soon as I got in. This Wi-Fi connection is not safe. So NordVPN on it there. And that was like the second time I've used the app. The first time was them telling me all my passwords have been corrupted and I need to change everything. So they're very much on it. It was most useful when I was having to file my piece on Harvey Elliott from the England game at like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. So Wheelo had it the next day. Yeah,
like a little cyber security guard, aren't they? So if you want to get on board with Nord, I just did that off the top of my head. I'm quite pleased with that.
Did you have to top of your head? That's quite good.
If you want to get on board with Nord,
translate that to your headlines. That'd be good.
To get the best discount, you can go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. That's nordvpn.com/bloodred. And our link gives you an extra 4 months free on a 2-year plan. And there's no risk at all with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And we'll stick the link in the podcast description box.
Is this the first you've heard of our sponsor, Doyley, with you being off?
you've not been here since we got sponsored.
I'm aware that we have a sponsor, yeah, on board with Nord. That's good.
Like that.
Maybe you could sell it to them.
Popped into my head.
I can't imagine they've not come up with that themselves.
Or something better, probably. But before we crack on and talk Alonso, what have you been up to this week, Ian Doyle?
Not much. Well, last night, as you know, I was playing with my band. Which, not a euphemism, I actually am in a band. Take us through your playlist. I've actually got it written down because I want to talk about it, but it's a good playlist. Well, you tell me it then.
Okay,
Teenage Kicks. I would like to point out, before we go any further, it's basically a load of middle-aged men, with the exception being the drummer, who's about 31, who is my most recent.
Yeah, that's good, because I'm only 35, so that means I'm not a middle-aged man. Teenage Kicks, Live Forever, Dreaming of You, Dead Flowers, Fortunate Son, and American Girl.
You like American Girl, don't you?
Yeah, really big fan of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Yeah. It's a good set.
Theo's got no idea what we're talking about.
No, he's not. He's not a music man. He doesn't come from far away.
He does not come from around our way.
Yeah.
Well, you're on stage when all the news broke last night.
Now it was literally about to, it's not on stage anyway, it was an open mic night, so it was just basically go and stand by the bar, but it was about to happen and it was like, oh, flipping heck.
This is journalism,
I said.
by the way.
Yeah.
So I get a text from Doyley. We obviously see that. We get a text from Doyley and he's like, I'm literally about to go on to play. I'll try and check
Find out what's going on.
And file something quickly. He finds out, it obviously files it on WhatsApp. I'm there trying to get it online, so... that's how the magic happens.
It is, yeah. It's not all glamour. In fact, it's not glamour at all.
And
don't be misled, everybody.
Straight into Teenage Kicks. I'm in a band, called Duvet. We're a cover band. So there you go.
Red card for Rimmer there.
Anything other than a
no
trip to Hull? Anything for you this week, though?
I had the trip to Bolton as well for the England game. Seeing
back to the homeland.
Harvey Elliott just terrorise Luxembourg. That's it, really, just working away.
So you saw his little Rabona live?
Yes and no. I saw it live, as in I was looking at my computer screen and saw it on the computer because I was typing away, starting my piece.
You saw it on the computer?
Yeah.
It was literally there.
I know. I heard the crowd say something, and Carl Markham was next to me, and he had the England stream up, so I had to quickly look over to see what they were all cheering at.
Yeah. Well, I did promise to tell you this live in the podcast. I went to the Legends game on Saturday. It was a great occasion. Took my little lad, and midway through the second half, he goes to me, Daddy, look, there's Mummy. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And he's, look, looks like Mummy. So I'm looking in the crowd thinking, my wife wasn't with us at the time. Looking in the crowd thinking, what's he mean? What do you mean? Where Samuel? Where is she? He's like, down there. Like, still looking in the crowd, but quite high up. He's like, down there. Just kick the football. It was Edgar Davids. It's like, what? So I've been saying to my wife all week that she looks like Edgar Davids, which is cool. He's still wearing the sunglasses anyway, so...
oh, was he?
I'll have to get her...
Was it the sunglasses then that gave it away?
Well, she doesn't wear like wraparound sunglasses all the time.
Well, why not?
Yeah, maybe she should. Anyway, I think people want to hear us talk about Xabi Alonso and not.
I was quite enjoying this.
My wife.
A bit different, isn't it?
All the songs that I've been playing.
Yeah, all the songs.
Or Theo's, travels around the great northern towns and cities.
So, Xabi Alonso, not looking likely to join Liverpool this summer. Looks likely to stay at Bayer Leverkusen. Doyley, fill us in.
Well, I'll tell you what's happened. Basically that's it, isn't it? Basically, Liverpool. My understanding is that Liverpool have known for a while that Alonso probably is going to stay at Bayer Leverkusen. Obviously, nothing's definite, and we know the way these things work, that they can change. But from the point of Liverpool, they can't afford to wait, can they? Because they know Jurgen Klopp's going at the end of the season. They need to crack on with their plans. We already know that they've got Michael Edwards in as Fenway Sports Group have got Michael Edwards in as the new chief executive of football, and then he's appointed Richard Hughes as the sporting director. So that's all in place, and they've been cracking on with the knowledge that Alonso almost certainly is going to be staying at Bayer Leverkusen. Now, Bayern Munich wanted him as well, and they came out, didn't they, yesterday? And it's Uli Hoeneß, isn't it, who's speaking on their behalf, and he said, look, we're pretty sure that we're not going to be able to get Alonso this summer because I think he's going to stay. And from an actual, take Liverpool buying all that out of it, good. Alonso's done really well at Bayer Leverkusen, and from his point of view, he's probably looking at it and going, well, I've taken this team, we're top of the league, we could get to the Europa League final, we could get to the German Cup final, we're going to be in the Champions League next season. Yeah. And I think we know anybody who works at a club for a while, if you have success, it's hard to leave. And he's built it, not so much all of it himself, but he's built a lot of it himself with the people that he's got there. And he probably thinks, well, I'd like to crack on. And so if you turn it around and say Alonso took over at Liverpool 18 months ago, and Bayern Munich and Real Madrid came in for him, and he went, no, I want to stay here and carry on with the job, that's good for him. But in the long term, I suppose, if he ends up taking over at Liverpool at some point in the future, it's good because it's a good reflection on his character. But for Liverpool now, that's irrelevant. They still need a manager, don't they? And if it's not going to be Alonso, it might not be several years. Well, Liverpool will hope it's not going to be several years before he comes round, because that would suggest that the person who does take over is done pretty well. But as I said at the top of this answer, we know things can change pretty quickly in football, and we'll have to wait and see. But Liverpool, from their part, have basically accepted that Alonso's not going to be going anywhere in the summer, so they are now looking elsewhere. I
suppose for Liverpool, they've got to make a decision, haven't they? You think there was some reports yesterday that Alonso would make a decision in, say, 4 weeks' time after some key fixtures, which really takes Liverpool into May, and then what if Alonso then says no? Then I think for Liverpool, they at some point have to make a call. They have to start planning. They have to get prepared, because they know that come the end of the season, Klopp's not going to be there anymore. So, it is a case of forward thinking, isn't it, a little bit from Liverpool?
Yeah, it is, and it sounds like it is for Bayern as well. Like, when both managers said they were going to step down from Liverpool and Bayern, it seemed like, this is going to be the race for Alonso, but obviously Alonso's got a lot to focus on this season. Granted, he can make a decision a little bit quicker than you'd expect in most German seasons, because they could have the league wrapped up in 3 weeks, I think. But Liverpool, because of Klopp's success over the last 9 years, they need something that in stone that they know is going to work for them. They have to get this appointment absolutely right, do all the homework, do all the research, and it's not as though Alonso is the only genuine candidate out there. Like we know Richard Hughes, the sporting director, he's a big fan of De Zerbi as well. He's tried to appoint him earlier in his career. Ruben Amorim is a big manager in Europe who's making a lot of headlines as well. And if it wasn't for the fact that Xabi Alonso is a former Liverpool player, maybe he'd be the favourite from the very beginning. It's just because there's that Liverpool links there. You're looking at Alonso. It'd be interesting to see what does happen next with all of it, really, because Alonso, while he's staying at Leverkusen, you maybe now think, are you just going to wait for the Real Madrid job? Because Ancelotti, I think, is now tied down until 25 or 26. He's had another couple of years there. It's maybe a better time for him. Like you look at Alonso now, and the only question mark is you've had 18 months at the top flight. Is that enough to make the step? And we're making the assumptions that he is going to be ready. He is going to be this next great generational manager after a Klopp and a Guardiola, but it's still very early in his career. I wouldn't have envied him having to choose between Liverpool or Bayern, because it would have been like choosing between your kids, wouldn't it? Choosing your favourite kid, considering the relationships he's got there. So he's managed to sidestep that completely by just going, stay at Leverkusen, have a go at the Champions League. But yeah, it's interesting for Liverpool when you have got a few names there and none of them have emerged as quite the front runner yet after Alonso.
I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because Alonso, with the connection he had with Liverpool, with the unbelievable season they're having, people... It's up to Liverpool to step back from all that and sort of choose the most suitable candidate. I think for fans, they've just got completely... I'll be honest, I was sort of all in on Alonso. I still really am, and I'm not really enthused by any of the other candidates. I must admit, I don't think it's an easy time to appoint a manager, but I don't look at any of them and think they have the sort of hit factor that takes a good coach or a good manager into a Liverpool manager. And I think when they got Klopp, he clearly had that. But we've seen in the past, good coaches don't necessarily make good managers.
Well, things change very quickly. Like if Klopp had gone last summer, everyone would be excited about De Zerbi because he was the it factor then, wasn't he? He was doing so well at Brighton. Granted, it's dropped off this year, but it was always going to with the Europa League. If we'd had the conversation 2 years ago, we'd have all probably still been on Steven Gerrard. Things do change very quickly with who is the up-and-coming manager.
Yeah, I take that. But I think what Alonso's doing is, it's extraordinary, really. Yeah. If you look at, Bayern have won that league, 10 seasons in a row now, and Leverkusen have never won it. They are 10 points clear with 8 games to go, I think. So, it's all but wrapped up. So, and I think it's the style of football. They're unbeaten in all competitions, and then the aura. And I think the problem for Liverpool now is, can they find a manager with that aura? Because my worry is that the others, they strike me a bit like Brendan Rodgers. They're up-and-coming coaches, but can they translate that into being a Liverpool manager? Am I too cynical, Doyley?
I think
my glass of Carabao is usually half full.
It is. I think you've fallen into your self-confessed Alonso trap, which an awful lot of media outlets have fallen down. The whole thing of chasing after Alonso and Liverpool. To be fair to them, they haven't really said much on it. They're never going to. But they've never even briefed in any way, shape or form, either for or against. So I think the only time anyone spoke about anything is when Klopp was directly asked about it in one of our breakouts, and he was like, "Yeah, Alonso's really good," But then that's what we'd say as well. But the fact that it's Klopp that said it,
I'm pretty sure if you said to him, but
what about exactly, exactly. So
might find that out later.
I think people, there'll be a sense of disappointment, but the reality is, by the looks of it, he was never going to be the manager, so it's just tough, isn't it? So Liverpool have known this, as I said before, they've known it for a while, so they're cracking on and finding out who's going to be the best one. And the interesting thing for me, funny enough, I was talking to somebody last night in the pub, that is, and he was basically said the point to say lots of people think this could be a bit of a poison chalice, but it's not like when Sir Alex Ferguson left Man United, and he kind of left United. Everybody knew the team was kind of in decline. This Liverpool team is quite clearly one that's on the up. So whoever comes in is taking over a team that, even if, and we know this will probably happen, one or two players will go, yeah, I really like Klopp, and I think I've been here long enough, and it might be time to go and do something else, because that's just natural. That's what will probably happen. I couldn't name any names, but that probably might happen. They'll still want to be there. The players will still want to be there, and whoever the manager is will inherit a really, really good squad that's on there with a lot of youngsters, got experienced players. They've got a team of proven winners, regardless of what happens over the next two months in the season. So it's from a position of strength. It's not like when Klopp came in and they were all down after what happened. You know, he had 15 months of probably going downhill under Rodgers after 2 years of going up. Rodgers took over from Dalglish, where they'd won a League Cup, but they were kind of still trying to steady the ship after Roy Hodgson, who didn't really do anything. And obviously Benitez's last year was a bit of a nightmare. And then Benitez taken from Julio, who had finished in the top 4, but they'd kind of lost the way a little bit, and he was essentially sacked, even though it looked like he resigned. And then before that was Roy Evans, who one of my former colleagues said that Julio coming in alongside him was the kindest sacking in football history. And then you had Souness. See what I mean? Like you can go all the way back to Dalglish in '91, and that was a surprise. But then that again, for other reasons other than just the football, that was a team that was going backwards. So Dalglish taken over from Joe Fagan in 1985, and that decision had already been made before what happened in Heysel. So that's the last time a Liverpool manager will be coming in from a position into a squad that's in a position of strength. So it is unusual. It's something that hasn't really happened before in terms of 2 generations there. So
the new manager's winning the double next year.
Well, the thing is not well. No, but then again, Dalglish had he used to come through the team, so he already knew what to expect. So this is a completely different kind of appointment that Liverpool will be making, but it's different in a good way. It's not something that it should be. The fans should be kind of like with trepidation, because whoever comes in, like, okay, let's say next week you could come in, and I'm pretty sure Liverpool will win most of the games next season.
Well,
with a good backroom staff.
I wouldn't say most, all of them. I mean, but I think that brings its own pressures, doesn't it? And I go back to Alonso and look at Liverpool, Bayern, and Real Madrid, and I think it looks like he doesn't want to leave Leverkusen, but if he was, that to me, that's what makes Liverpool such an attractive job, is that they've got a young team, an exciting team, a very settled, albeit I know Michael Edwards is technically new, but he's not. So it's quite a settled club, in terms of that they're in a good shape financially.
Just sorry to interrupt you, but it is a job where I think it's far more likely that will be an up-and-coming manager who wants to prove himself will want to take on that challenge, because a lot of the more established and successful ones will look at what happened, how well Klopp's done, and gone, I'm not going to try and follow that. And I think it is more a case of I think Liverpool aren't soft either. I think they know that's the kind of profile of the manager that they want, a manager who's ready to take the next step, who's proven himself at the level that he's at the moment.
I don't think there's many established managers, Theo, that you could even go for. I mean, if you think about established in terms of like big names, you're not going to touch Mourinho with a barge pole. Like, who else is out there? Zidane? Well,
I wouldn't touch Zidane. I know Steve Killen wants Zidane, but I wouldn't.
Very much like a Real Madrid manager to me, like a figurehead who sort of kept everyone happy. But I mean, maybe that's quite disrespectful to Zidane. I think there's an element to that around him. He did do very, very well there. But again, there's always the feeling with Zidane that I think he'd be a good international coach, perhaps, but I'm not convinced that he could come and do a job at Liverpool.
Why? Sorry to interrupt there. Why?
Because I think almost like a bit like Dalglish when he took over that team in 1985. I think you're probably looking at. He knew Real Madrid, didn't he? He knew the club.
Well, this is the thing. That's the thing, is that the argument about when he took over, it's like, well, he hasn't done his like, not coaching badges, but he hasn't done, he had gone through the ranks that some managers do. They go into lower clubs. And it's like, well, how's that going to help him at Real Madrid? And
he'd done the Castilla team, hadn't he?
Yes, but that's that's basically the reserves, isn't it, at Real Madrid? So.
Pep Guardiola did that with Barcelona, the Barcelona B, and then
exactly. So that again, that's their reserve team. So he's still part of the same kind of club, isn't it? So Zidane, I don't think he'd have any problem coming to Liverpool, because it's, whether we like it or not, it's not quite as big a club as Real Madrid, but it's still a massive club, and he'd know exactly what to expect.
I'd say Real Madrid are the big winners from this, because everyone was a little bit surprised when Ancelotti signed his new contract before Christmas. They think, does that mean that they're writing off going for Alonso? But it turns out, by having that little bit of patience, waiting another year or two, then more of the leading managers will arrive. They're not going to be up and coming because they've got that more time to prove themselves. It's just interesting looking at it, because we can find the pros and cons for every single scenario here. Like, obviously, Liverpool allegiances will say Liverpool's the club you want to go to. It's a really good squad. They're just going to get better and better. Yes, you're replacing Klopp, but you can do that next journey. In Germany, they're saying, what's a poison chalice? How can you replace Klopp? we're saying Bayern Munich is an impossible job because it's a mess behind the scenes. Well, that in Germany they're saying, well, it can't get any worse. Then you're going to have millions of pounds to spend in the summer. You're going to win something next year. You're taking it as a step up.
But that's why I look at it as like, if you're Alonso, if you go to Bayern and win the league, that's the second best achievement in your career so far, other than because Bayer Leverkusen is so much more difficult. And I don't necessarily think.
But he's going there to win the Champions League, then, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. But that's the pressure. Whereas you go to Liverpool, you could finish second next year, third, and people would look at that as progress. I just think it's a
so what
it's a longer and better project.
Going to Liverpool would be less ambitious, is what you're saying there?
No, I'm saying that it's a better project for a younger manager. I think you get more time, you would get more understanding and more patience. Whereas if you finish second with Bayern Munich next year, they'd probably.
But he's not going to hit them anyway, so it doesn't matter.
No, but
everything's a risk and a gamble.
I still think there's an element. Let's go back 11 years, 12 years. The exact same thing happened with Brendan Rodgers. They went after Rodgers, then said he wasn't coming, and then eventually he comes. Can there be an element of smoke and mirrors to all this? Can there be an element of Liverpool going, come on, we need an answer. We need you to sort of make your mind up and put a bit of pressure on Alonso?
Well, yes, because that's why I said at the start, these things can change. But, again, if Liverpool have done their due diligence and have been led to believe that Alonso's not going anywhere, then, as we said before, they can't afford to hang around and wait. They will be doing all the other stuff, regardless of whether at the last minute Alonso turns around and says, actually, I've changed my mind, I quite fancy having a go at Liverpool. So Liverpool can't afford to just sit around. So I almost think that point is almost irrelevant because it's only happening in Alonso's head. So only he'll know.
And it's one with Alonso as well, where even if it wasn't, I'm staying at Leverkusen, you're still waiting it out to see if he'd choose you over Bayern Munich. And that's a gamble in itself. So they need to make sure they're going for the right manager. The only problem now is if both of them aren't getting Alonso, they're still going to be going for the same people. They're going to be looking at De Zerbi, they're going to be looking at Amorim. So it's still going to be a battle between Liverpool and Bayern Munich. But then you throw Barcelona in as well. Like Barcelona can't really be in the Alonso conversation because of the Real Madrid links, but now there will be for a De Zerbi or whoever else is.
But it looks like Xavi might be changing his mind.
Might he?
Yeah, that's a suggestion that could happen.
Do you want to say that could happen with Klopp? Do you know?
No, I'm not going to say that because it would be a waste of a question in a press conference.
So
as every press conference somebody asks him, change your mind yet? No.
The other two big runners riders seem to be De Zerbi and Amorim. They seem to be the two that the club set definitely looking at, and I'm sure it'll go beyond them. But they perhaps the two favourites now. I haven't seen the odds, but I would guess so. Go on, each of you. Which one would you lean towards? Go on, Theo.
It's difficult because I've not seen much of Amorim, whereas I've seen De Zerbi's Brighton, and they were so impressive last year. It's understandable why they've dropped off this year because they've lost some big players and they had the added pressure of European football, and that was always going to take its toll on the squad. We've seen Mitoma ruled out for the season. But De Zerbi is a very exciting manager. He worked wonders with them last year, stepping up from when Potter took over. We know Richard Hughes is a big fan of Italian football. He grew up in Italy for a bit, and he tried to bring him to Bournemouth. So that seems like another logical step where you've got the contacts there. It's someone you know. But Ruben Amorim, from what I've read up on, he's done really well at Sporting as well. They snapped him up after a few months when he was the up-and-coming coach in Portugal. He's won a lot of trophies in a short space of time, and I think he's on course for a couple more this year as well.
He won their first league, I think, in 19
Yeah.
years. I mean, I didn't actually know that they'd gone that long.
19 years, exactly.
19 years, which is quite surprising, isn't it? But I suppose Porto and Benfica often dominate.
It's like Arsenal haven't won the league for 20 years.
Yeah.
Then Liverpool have the contacts with Portugal as well. So they're going to be able to do the homework on both. It's easy to just lean towards De Zerbi because the one I'm more familiar with. But at this point, I don't think it's going to be too deflating when he comes over. Like compared to 12 months ago, you miss out on Jude Bellingham. Liverpool aren't doing well, and it felt like everything was ending. It was just what is going to happen here. Whereas now Alonso doesn't.
Is that what you really thought?
It was pretty deflating, wasn't it? Whereas Alonso doesn't choose Liverpool. It's like, oh, well, just go and get whoever, and you're still relying on them to be the right manager with a very good squad, and that can still make the right steps in the future.
I'm much more deflated about this than I was about Bellingham.
I must admit that both of them, the news we got an inkling at around 8:30, 9 o'clock both times I was working, so I was equally deflated at having my evening ruined by having to do loads of work. To be honest, it's all about me. It's all about me. Hey, it's all about me. This is it's all about me.
10 minutes before you went on stage.
Professional.
I don't actually know. So De Zerbi was your answer to the question?
Yeah, just because he's the one I'm more familiar with.
Yeah. What about yourself?
Well, the thing is that I was just thinking about this then as Theo was going through the runners and riders and the reasons for it, and Alonso made sense even if he wasn't Alonso, because he presumably he's going to win the league, because there's no way Liverpool are taking a Real Madrid manager or someone like that. There's no way. That's never going to happen, as far as I'm concerned.
What do you mean, take a Real Madrid?
Well, whoever the manager of Real Madrid is or Barcelona are doing really well. They're never going to take... that manager's never going to move from those clubs to there.
That's why I'd say you'd probably never get Alonso now, because it would just be Real Madrid manager.
Well, you don't know what happens.
You don't know what's going to happen.
From Real Madrid,
exactly,
you could leave Real Madrid.
Bayer Leverkusen could get relegated next year. Yeah. Probably won't But anyway, going back to my point, is that Klopp was somebody who'd proven himself at one of the big leagues. You're never going to take the PSG manager. Who's that? I don't even know who that is. Is it Enrique? He's still there. Enrique, yeah. So you're never going to take him. Never going to take the Real Madrid one. Thomas Tuchel, no, because he's already been over, and I think people. It sounds terrible, doesn't it? He's done really well everywhere he's been. Like, he won the Champions League with Chelsea, and people are like, no, I don't really want him.
Just falls out with everyone.
Exactly, yeah. So you are looking then at the other leagues, and then you've got the Premier League, which we know is a bit of a closed shop at the top, whether we like it or not. And there's only a certain amount of managers going to get up to that level. So there you're looking at the rung below. Nobody's mentioned Unai Emery, by the way. Would anybody take Emery?
Probably not.
Why not?
No, just because of his record at Arsenal, it didn't quite do it there, and I think
that wasn't really his fault, though.
No, yeah. but I think as soon as you step up to a truly elite club, it's one thing to do well with Aston Villa, but when you step up and you go to a club that you expect. There is an expectation at Liverpool is to win titles, to win trophies. Klopp said it in his first press conference, and he in a few years' time here, he said titles, but what he meant was trophies. We will win trophies, and go back. Rodgers didn't win one. Every other Liverpool manager won trophies.
I was going to say, go back to Benitez, and he'd done it in Spain with Valencia. So the one that he wanted Alonso. Obviously, he's about to do it with Leverkusen, one of the unfancy teams in a major league. So then you have to go into the next tier of leagues, and then that brings you to Portugal, something like that, or Holland.
Yeah.
Right, so they're the two that you'd say are next up. So it does make sense that Liverpool are looking at that. With De Zerbi, what I quite like about him is the way he handles himself with the media, and I think that's an important thing as well for Liverpool, because whether we like it or not, what's happened with Klopp is a one-off in terms of you had it with Shankly, you had it with Klopp, you had it to a certain degree early on with Benitez, and you had it for different reasons with Dalglish. And you could argue for a little bit, there was a bit of love for Houllier, but the rest of them, they were just interested in winning stuff. Whereas with Klopp, he realised if we want to win stuff, we have to get the fans on board, and he did that very early on, and the fans bought into it, and he used that. And obviously all the managers use the home record and the Anfield crowd, this, that and the other. But none of them have used it quite as much as Klopp, and obviously he's come with a lot of experience of doing the same thing at Mainz and Dortmund. Now, whoever comes in, I'm pretty sure with the new managers comes in, isn't going to have been a manager for 14 years somewhere, at other clubs. That's just for the reasons that we mentioned before. So don't expect him to be like Klopp in that sense, but you want him to have a certain sense of presence, a certain charisma in their own way. And we don't know what Amorim's like because we never ever see him, because we don't see the Portuguese press conferences, the Lisbon press conferences. So we can't really comment on that. We don't know what he's like as a person, but you see De Zerbi through our dealings with him when they play Liverpool, or just see him on whatever Sky match today or in the newspapers. And he comes across as quite well. And he can be a little bit prickly at times. He got a little bit frustrated in January, I think, when Brighton didn't have any money. I think it was it could have even been last January for bolstering the squad, and he was like, I'll add a little bit of a moan. And I don't necessarily mind that, because Klopp, he never moaned as such, but you could tell sometimes, he wasn't unafraid to go public and kind of say, well, we could have taken a few more risks, we could have done this, that, and the other. But De Zerbi hasn't rocked the boat, and Klopp didn't either. No. So I think from that point of view, I think if he came, he'd know the restraints that. Okay, certainly compared to Brighton, it seems like there's no restraints. Yeah, but the financial restraints that Liverpool would have compared to the likes of Manchester City, Man United, Chelsea, possibly Newcastle as well.
That's massively, I think, with both of them. That they both seem to be coaches who bring through younger players but are also happy at times to sell them and use the money to blood others or find others. And I certainly think Liverpool will have that in their mind. The big thing for me, I do worry about is.
Sorry to interrupt you. What about the lad at Bournemouth?
Iriola. I just think I think he's got a really good track record, but I think in terms of the Premier League, it would be a massive gamble.
I quite like how Bournemouth play though.
No,
I remember they played Liverpool first home game of the season, Liverpool's first home game, and I remember thinking, these are quite good, right? Or they're playing certainly a different way. And I know the standard of players that they've got is nowhere near the same as Liverpool, but there's very rarely, I know Liverpool won 4-0 there, but there's very rarely you see a game where they're not out, they're completely out of it. I mean, they won 3-0 at United, didn't they? So, they've got to be a decent team. Nobody wins by United.
Definitely think and I think there's some good young coaches in the Premier League, but I just think, and this is what I was going to come to, to me, the thing that was great about Alonso was the aura. And I worry for Liverpool that some of the managers mentioned now don't have the right aura to become a Liverpool manager. And I think if you look at, I go back to Brendan Rodgers and living through that sort of, I thought Benitez came in with an aura. He won those trophies in Spain.
But Benitez went out for a drink in Leverkusen, didn't he? Wasn't it?
He did. But he also
it's kind of like there was little things that happened.
His personality, Benitez, because of the way he was.
He's just. But Benitez was he is just slightly odd.
Yeah. I know, but that kind of, he had an aura about him, didn't he? That won people over, and people believed in him. You think how bad, certainly domestically, that first season of Benitez's was. I mean, they played some of the worst football and put in some of the worst performances. They lost big games at United, at Everton. They didn't really. They had, he made a couple of, Alonso included, exciting signings that seemed to point well for the future, but they weren't very good until they won the Champions League, which I know is a big. That's quite a big thing in that season. Yeah. But if you think, I remember some of those domestic performances that didn't seem to be much doubt around Benitez right from the word go, even when they were losing games.
But I think
because he had an aura.
But also
Houllier had a foreign. He came in. He was Liverpool's first foreign manager and had that aura around him. I just think that my worry is De Zerbi wouldn't have that aura, and the second things go wrong, I think it's a belief that players have. Players buy into. Mourinho walked into Chelsea, and the players had made their minds up before he walked through the door. And that's my slight concern. Is that
don't you think that some of the Liverpool players will be speaking to Lallana and Milner, who are at Brighton,
McAllister,
and exactly McAllister as well? They'll know.
But I don't necessarily think that.
Didn't Lallana say he was scared that he'd be the next Liverpool manager anyway? De Zerbi. That was only a few weeks ago, wasn't it? He was proper praising him, saying how good he was.
You look at some of the things that Brendan Rodgers did, and I think if he'd have had the track record that some of the other managers have had, people would have said, "Oh, it's brilliant." The envelope trick and all that. In hindsight, it comes across as a really try hard.
Who was the other person who was interviewed for that job?
Roberto Martinez.
And now Martinez obviously went on to Everton, but he also went on to Belgium and Portugal, and he's had very, very good jobs.
Yeah, no, he has.
So
I wouldn't have touched them as a Liverpool manager. Though.
No, I'm just saying is that Liverpool were looking at them.
But my worry is that's what they're looking at now, the choice between a Martinez and a Rodgers. And they're unlucky because I don't think there's many great managers. But I look at this, and I say this from, my glass of Carabao is half full, but I do think that there aren't many great managers.
Okay, rewind to October 2015, you've just sat Brendan Rodgers and Jurgen Klopp doesn't exist. Who's the next Liverpool manager?
Well, then they would have had a very difficult point, but they'd
sacked
Rodgers.
Carlo, weren't they?
They sacked Rodgers then because Klopp was available, wasn't he? I mean, they sacked Rodgers at a very odd time. They clearly knew.
Yeah, but they were a bit rubbish as well. Let's be honest.
They were, but they just
It's
come through one of the worst.
That's the massive difference now. Like you go through all those managers when Benitez comes in and when Hodgson, pretty much all of them. It was from a weak position. The squad wasn't great.
Well, that goes back to what I was saying before.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas now, like Doyley said earlier, Liverpool have not been in this position for so long. So you're giving the manager that extra bit of grace. The only way it blows up in his face is if it's nowhere near as good as it was under Klopp. If they're like in the relegation zone and he's coming out with Hodgson quotes and he's really alienating the fans.
That's the other thing, yeah. Whoever it is that comes in isn't going to do that because Hodgson was like that. He was. There's an example of someone who's been in the game too long to take over at Liverpool.
Yeah,
he was too afraid of upsetting anybody. All the people that he'd befriended over the many years, which to a point.
San Siro's good. Old Trafford has a good atmosphere.
Exactly. So he doesn't want to say that. Whereas Klopp just goes, "Yeah, I was at Dortmund, but." And Dortmund fans go, "Well, he'd said exactly the same thing if he was our manager.
Ruben Amorim, I think I was reading about him, and it seems like one of the big plus points for him is he plays a very similar style to Klopp, high line, pressing, and I do wonder whether Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes would be looking at him and going, it's evolution. You know, we've built this young squad. Can you really then go and ask these types of players to play a completely different style? And one thing Alonso would have done is he does play a different style. And I still think the best coaches adapt. You know, you look at Klopp. He didn't play 4-3-3 when he arrived, but he
did play 4-3-3 at Dortmund mostly.
Yeah, he adapted to the players he had, and I do think the best coaches. But I do wonder whether there's thinking in Liverpool going, well, someone like Amorim will come in and continue the work that Klopp's done, rather than try and overhaul and refresh and try and buy different players and implement something completely new.
Also, he's won stuff. It doesn't matter what level you're at. If you win stuff, you know how to win games. You know
and he's done
how to
that
win
whilst
big games.
buying and selling players, and he's done that whilst overcoming the two other big teams in that league.
That might be the big question mark against De Zerbi, where he hasn't won anything as far as I'm aware. He hasn't, has he?
I would lean
maybe like the Ukrainian Cup or something like that.
I would lean to Amorim over De Zerbi just because I feel like the trophy is the competing against two of the bigger clubs in that league. I think gives him. But there are other people.
If you could take any manager in the world, who would you take?
Any manager in the world.
You can't take Klopp, by the way.
Can't take Pep
or
Guardiola.
Alonso. Yeah, you can take Guardiola if you want.
I'd take Guardiola because he's the best manager in the world, and I think he'd make it work. But if not them, then I actually think it's very tough. Funny enough, when they sacked Rodgers, you know, it felt like there were options out there. I don't think this year there are many options. I think it's tough.
Is that just because everyone's got so not obsessed with Klopp, but become so comfortable with him that they can't really see a different? You know, it's like there's no future without. You know, I've seen some fans like saying stuff like, you know, I can't believe Alonso's not coming, this, that, and the other. Why would you turn down Liverpool? Is what they've said. Well. Yeah. We've just gone through all the reasons why, and there's not necessarily mean that he's going to turn him down in the future. But there's a time. It's got to be the perfect timing. With Klopp, there was that everything. The stars aligned. Or Liverpool, FSG gave them a bit of a shove at one point. But you know, I think with Alonso, going back to him, I just don't think they're clearly aligned at the moment.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, clearly not. It sounds like he's going to be giving his Bayer Leverkusen press conference today and probably announce there and then that he's sticking around.
That he's leaving and he's joining Liverpool.
But someone said, Paul T said, I agree, a couple of years ago they'd be talking about Potter, and that's my feeling about De Zerbi. My slight worry with De Zerbi is that Brighton are such a well-developed club in the sense that they obviously have good people in recruitment, that they replace. I mean, Potter was everyone's.
I'm still not sure about that.
No, neither am I. My watch is not sure about De Zerbi, and neither am I. So there you go.
Well, what just happened there?
Sorry,
what happened there?
It's still talking to me.
Tell it to stop.
It says an interesting question.
Oh, right.
Julian Nagelsmann is another. There's two more managers I want to talk about before we have a quick natter about Brighton, as in playing Brighton at the weekend. Julian Nagelsmann is getting a lot of mentions in the chat. Again, he's somebody that I feel like a year or so ago, 2 years ago, he'd have been one of the ones that when Klopp was meant to leave, when he, you know, after the 7-year period that a lot of people assumed he would, he was one of the managers that was really getting mentioned. Is he someone that could come back to the fore, do you think?
Potentially. Wasn't he a free agent in the summer when his Germany contract expires?
Yeah, I
And
suppose
he did reasonably well at Bayern. Like, he won trophies. He was harshly sacked. I think everyone thought it was a bit of a surprise at the time last season. And granted, it wasn't Bayern's best season, and they still went on to win the league without him. He's still very young, but he's got the record. He's done things. He's got to finals. He's won trophies. He's got that reputation for a reason. It'll be interesting to see what he does with Germany in the summer, but then how does international football translate back? That's a difficult job in itself, because you know all the Germans are just waiting for Klopp to be available and go, I want this job now. But
all the Germans.
All the Germans are. They all just want
all the Germans.
But yeah, he's still got that reputation for a reason.
Alles die Deutsch.
No, I know he does have a very good reputation. He always strikes me as a Tottenham manager. I think goes to Tottenham, plays some good football, not actually ever win anything. And
but he's one thing.
You sound like me. Give me a Tottenham diatribe.
It's like Big Ange now. Everyone gets Ange ball, you know.
Who is older than Jurgen Klopp, by the way? Yeah.
Plays some good football, says some things, and he'll ultimately leave Tottenham in 3 or 4 years without having won a thing.
Why are you writing them off? I think Tottenham could win something, you know. They could win the lesser domestic cup competition in the coming
FA
years.
Cup? Do you think so?
No, the Carabao.
Should have said it.
Europa
or
Conference
League Cup,
League.
as it actually is. Yeah.
The other one, Simeone Inzaghi, obviously done very well at Inter. Got to the Champions League final, won the Coppa Italia there, and
He'd be onside, wouldn't it? It's his brother that's offside, isn't it?
Yeah. They are.
Are you onside with Inzaghi? It's very rare thing.
I do think it's interesting that some leagues are sexier than others, aren't they? And I think at the moment the Italian league, well, it's actually probably always the Italian league's never been the sexiest for maybe in the
Hang on, you think that the Italian league has never been sexy?
The mid-90s, sorry. I mean...
Mid-90s? Like you're showing your age there a little bit. As in you're young.
Mid-noughties. It was when Ronaldo versus Messi became the thing that Italy lost its glamour.
In the 1980s, it was just all about the Italian league.
Of course. But
AC Milan, Arrigo Sacchi, Klopp's hero.
But people don't really talk about their managers now, do they? I think maybe they've got a sort of stereotypical
Apart from
reputation.
Roberto De Zerbi, who we've literally just spent about 20 minutes talking about.
Yeah, but because of his record in the Premier League, not because of anything in Italy.
Still an Italian manager, though.
I know. You've got me on a technicality. You've got me on a technicality there. But I think people are talking about because of the Premier League. It's I do think with Inzaghi, I mean, he got to a Champions League final. He's on course to win the league. He's relatively young.
Got lovely hair.
And has managed a big club. Why is he not being mentioned?
I don't know. Maybe it's because of people like you think that Italian football, the Italian league, is somehow unsexy.
I didn't say. I'm saying there is.
Good thing the new sporting director doesn't think that way.
Exactly, yeah, because he was born in Italy.
But I'm saying there's a perception. I just wonder maybe he's a little bit unattainable right now. Maybe he doesn't want to leave Inter and is happy.
Can he speak English?
Can he speak English is another one. So let's talk football at the weekend, Brighton.
Can we not talk about sexy leagues? What is the sexiest league?
What is the sexiest league?
Yeah, in your view.
Do you mean like?
Whatever you are determining, because you're the one who brought it up.
Okay, so we're not talking about the Premier League.
So you're going Saudi League?
Eh?
It's got all the money. It's got all the big names.
No. But I think the sexiest league right now for someone, an Englishman looking out to the looking abroad, is probably Bundesliga. Yeah, Bundesliga's got a bit of sexiness about it, and then La Liga will always retain its it's like Penelope Cruz, isn't it? It'll always be quite sexy.
But what's the most sensual league then?
I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. But what do you think's the sexiest?
I don't know. Sexiest league.
They're all underwhelming.
You're a very hard man to please, though. Clearly, I mean, I've always got a thing for the Spanish league, so there you go.
Yeah.
Though I'm not having the Italian league as being unsexy. Sorry.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's a perception. You don't hear many people sort of praise managers or players for what they've done in Italy at the moment. I feel like there's almost like a negative perception of the Italian league.
Got to the Champions League final last year, exactly.
Bundesliga managers get talked about all the time as forward-thinking, progressive, great young managers. Spain always has the prestige. I just don't really feel like Italian managers or coaches or players get talked about.
They had a representative in every European final last year, didn't they? Because did Roma play final? Lost, didn't they? I think they all lost because Fiorentina got beat by West Ham and Man City beat Inter Milan. So they're kind of just sneaking. Apparently, I think Italian football's on the rise a little bit, shall we say?
Yeah, perhaps.
I suppose Premier League's got all the money. It's the best league in the world. La Liga for so long had Ronaldo and Messi, so everyone was looking there. Italy, its reputation took a bit of a damage hit to it after the match fixing in the mid-noughties. But before that, it was still very exciting. Like you think that AC Milan team Liverpool played in Istanbul, 11 plus world-class players. The Juventus team the next year was exactly the same. When Inter Milan went and won the Champions League, and was it 2010? That was an amazing team that Mourinho had as well. It was an Asian squad, so there was no longevity there. But Italy, it did just drop off because Messi emerged, Ronaldo emerged, everyone was looking at Spain, and now there's that vacuum of what is the next one to emerge. It just happens it's the Premier League.
Yeah. What's the ugliest league?
The ugliest league? God.
That one could be Saudi.
Actually, don't answer that question. You're just going to lose whoever's listening.
League On isn't...
Really? Of all the leagues as well?
Well, I know, but...
What will Edgar Davids think?
Yeah... Sorry, but like you look, the crowds aren't great. PSG have kind of ruined any competition.
Have Man City ruined any competition in England?
Not completely, as shown by Liverpool and potentially Arsenal. Right, let's talk Brighton at the weekend. Obviously, we're talking before Klopp's press conference, but Liverpool did train yesterday, and there was several players missing. Doyley, Konate wasn't there, Jones wasn't there. we named some other ones last night.
Tsimikas wasn't there.
Tsimikas wasn't there. Bobby Clark wasn't there.
No. But they could be doing, given everything else that happened last night, we never had a chance to have a proper assessment. But, doing his press conference in a bit, we'll learn a lot more. I mean, I'd be surprised if, Konate played 90 minutes for France on Tuesday. Tsimikas played 120 minutes, for Greece in Georgia.
I think it's just a managing there.
Yeah, it will. You'd think so, wouldn't you? You'd think so. And even if it isn't, Quanta played recently at centre back. Joe Gomez can play left back. I know Andy Robertson is injured. He's probably not going to play against Brighton. But it could still be Brighton breezy. Had to get it in.
Yeah. But looking ahead to Brighton, I think it's one of them, Theo, isn't it? It's a slightly dangerous game because obviously the other game that day, City Arsenal, everyone's sort of going, Liverpool play at home. If they win, they'll go top and then they can sit back. But as we've talked about at length this podcast, De Zerbi is an established manager, obviously very good, and every single time Brighton play at Anfield, they sort of give Liverpool a scare, don't they?
Oh, Steve pointed out in Monday's podcast that Klopp has not beaten De Zerbi yet. They've had 4 meetings and a couple of draws, a couple of defeats.
Yeah, there's always goals.
Yeah, there's always goals, but Liverpool, it feels like they haven't had a chance to properly go at Brighton at their best. And you'd like to think this will be a little bit different, but you can't really batter Brighton if you want De Zerbi to be your new manager. You need to do well, lose, but
so you want a 1-0 win?
2-0. It can be comfortable enough.
I think it's fair. You think you can batter them. I don't think it really matters. But I think for Liverpool, it's every game is massive, isn't it? But imagine if they didn't win this game. There's a lot of pressure on them going back into this game, I think, to win.
Do you think so? I don't think there's any pressure on Liverpool at all. I think they're by some distance the team that's not expected to be up there. I think every single time they win a game now between now and the end of the season, it'll be like, oh, that's a bit of a bonus.
I don't think so, because I think that the season has created its own pressure, and once you go into the final 10 games... And
I don't think they'll be feeling any pressure at all.
Maybe not the players, but I think there's outside, I think there'll be pressure.
Do you mean the fans?
Yeah, I think people will go into Anfield and think...
You think the fans should not look at it as though... And I'm not going to tell fans what to think, because that's the last thing you should ever be doing, but... There's 5, 6, possibly 7 more home games with Klopp. They should just go and enjoy it no matter what's happening.
I accept that, but that's not... if this game gets to 70 minutes tomorrow, it's 0-0 or, God forbid, 1-0 Brighton. Can you imagine the pressure and the nervousness around Anfield? They should enjoy these games, but with 10 games to go and you're in a title race,
they'll just create a big atmosphere, though. Like, it's easy to get distracted by the fact that they lost the last game and Liverpool weren't very good in the last game, despite dominating for some of it. That just wasn't right, but they were superb against Man City. The crowd are really up for it, and you are coming to this run now with players back from injury. The 2-week break has come at a really good time for Liverpool. Granted, we might not see many of the bodies back now. Like, we're waiting until United or a bit after. Like, even if Jones is trains today, he's in the squad. He's not starting, is he? Yeah. But Konate, Gravenberch coming back in. Players are rested up, so they're not as knackered. It's only Tsimikas.
Nunes clearly needed a break, didn't he?
Yeah.
Salah was probably a decent break for Salah.
I think they'll be refreshed and ready to go. Like, this is the run-in with Klopp. Enjoy it while you can. But now we can achieve something really special, and everyone's going to be on board with that, fans, players alike.
And Liverpool always end the season under Klopp very strongly. Last 5 years, I think there's only been one time where they've dropped more than 6 points, and that was the time when they'd already won the league.
I did see a stat the other day. It was like what points City get in the final 10 games of the season, and normally it's around the 25-point mark. And if you go through Liverpool's fixtures left, if you throw in dropping points at Goodison or Old Trafford, that's around the mark you can get. So if it all is historical, on track, Liverpool are in a great place. They can do exactly the same thing and win the league by a point.
But
season's over. Theo sorted it.
Germans don't want Nagelsmann, and Liverpool have won the league by a point.
Germans want Klopp. That's very different to saying Germans don't want Nagelsmann.
All the Germans. All the Germans.
Every German.
Don't forget all of them.
Let's pick our teams
Even the expats.
for Sunday's game. Keller in goal.
It's a controversial call, but I'm going to go with Keller in goal. Yeah.
Not Adrian. Does Keller stay in goal when Alisson returns?
I think Keller should stay in goal for the Europa League games. Yeah, if they're still in it.
As in who's in goal? Kelleher.
Good.
The surprise there.
Theo gives you back 4.
Bradley's at right back. Joe Gomez at left back. Van Dijk. And I'll lean towards Konate. I'm going to assume he's fit and he got through those 90 minutes unscathed and he'll train today and everything's fine.
I agree with Das Squires over there.
I also agree with Das Squires. Midfield then, go on.
Endo McAllister's the boss line.
Yeah, I think it picks itself, doesn't it?
Yep, that's 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Are we all saying Salah, Nunes, and Diaz? By the way.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. We are. Okay, we'll put the team. Let's go.
It picks itself. Okay, give us a prediction then.
10-0 to Liverpool. Purely to annoy him.
I don't think you'll ever see Ian Doyle predict Liverpool win ever again. So yeah, never mind. 10-0. True prediction.
10-0.
Come on, true prediction.
I want to see what Theo says first.
2-0.
2-0.
Well, the thing is that Klopp seems to talk Brighton up as though they're like the Brazil 1970, which is just like it's like come on, it's Brighton.
What's their form before the international break?
Right, it's worth checking this because I'm sure that since October, the only teams they've beaten or something in the league are something like Nottingham Forest, Brentford, Luton, and somebody else. Basically, they've not won hardly any games. In fact,
they've had a lot of injuries as well.
Yeah.
So
so Liverpool.
They beat Forest in the last
Man
league
United,
game.
don't forget. As Eric Ten Hag said after the game, he said he couldn't believe
They lost 3-0 to Fulham away from home. They drew 1-1 at home with Everton.
They lost 5-0 to Sheffield United.
They won 5-0 at Sheffield United. They lost 2-1 away at Tottenham. I think they do play well against the bigger teams, don't they? Brighton 4-1 at home. They won against Crystal Palace, lost 4-0 away at Luton, of course. Drew 0-0 at home to Wolves.
So what we've learned is
this
they're very
podcast
hot
just
and
come
cold.
into here's Brighton's results in reverse.
Sorry?
This basic podcast become here's Joe Rimmer reads out Brighton's
you asked me
results.
to.
I didn't ask you to read them out, did I?
We're rapidly losing listeners.
Anyway, so yeah, I don't think 10-0. No, I'm going to go with 3-1.
Yeah, I think 3-1. I think Brighton tend to get a goal against Liverpool. So yeah, I think 3-1. I think Liverpool will come back and look good. I go back to that United game. I think there were real patches of that game that Liverpool looked very, very good. So quite confident. And yeah, we'll see if there's any development in the new manager over the next couple of weeks.
De Zerbi announces that he's coming after the game in the post-match. See you in a couple of months.
Don't say that. It's
Right,
too much work for us to do. To be fair, it's a 2:00 kick-off, so we'd have enough time.
Yeah, we'll be back on Monday to talk Brighton, to talk managers, and much more. Thank you for listening. Thank you for commenting. Loads of great comments. Keep them coming in. Give us a like.
Even one from Steve Killen.
Yeah, even more. Well, one or two from Steve Killen.
Are we pressing the bell?
I haven't got there yet.
Okay, sorry.
If you've been listening, please give us a like. Lots of people listening, so a few likes would go a long way. If you listen on Apple, give us a few stars. 5 if you want to. If you want to give us a few less, I don't mind. But 5 is.
Speak for yourself.
Well,
I think it's definitely worth 5. This one, at least.
Well, let people make their own minds up. We don't force them. And if you listen on YouTube,
job.
subscribe, press the bell, and to get notifications. And yeah, we'll be back on Monday. Thanks very much. See you then.